Wonderland, it's magic.
Hello everyone! Welcome to the worst album ever made. A show where we're still trying to find out what is the worst album ever made. You know, last episode was pretty exciting. We finally found something that was worse than Metal Machine music. Now let's see if we continue that trend today. Because today we are covering a long suggested album review. We're going to be talking about Mrs.Miller today. Oh boy, am I so excited. Oh, it's like I'm a kid in a candy store today. I freaking love Mrs. Miller. Before we get into it, before we talk about Mrs. Miller, we have to ask the question.
Who is Mrs. Miller?
Every 10 years or so, the music gods demand a sacrifice. One singer that must be pushed into the dirt, kicked onto the ground for trying to make it in this wacky world we call the music industry. From your Florence Foster Jenkins to your Ice J.J. Fish to your William Hungs to your Rebecca Blacks, they all are victims of this curse. And today we are talking about just one of these other victims that were put onto the spotlight for their awful singing voice. And of course, that is Mrs. Miller. Mrs. Miller seems like a very, very nice lady. A classically trained singer who sang just for the fun of it, who recorded herself singing and then just gave out her records to orphanages all around her city. She was discovered by DJ Gary Owens, who brought her onto the show for her unique singing voice. And right after that, she was signed to Capitol Records. What? Now, when Mrs. Miller was brought on to Capitol Records, it was a gigantic joke. Mrs. Miller is not the same people that Capitol puts on. They were doing it as a front to make fun of her. After Mrs. Miller was signed, Capitol Records put her on to do several different albums, which led to her debut album titled Mrs. Miller's Greatest Hits. What they did is they changed the gospel and children's song that Mrs. Miller sang to the orphanages and then made her sing popular hits of the day. And according to Mrs. Miller, they purposely took only the bad takes when they were recording. They would show her the music and then record her right after she got the music, so she was not prepared to sing this great. Capitol Records wanted her to sound bad on purpose, just so everyone makes fun of this sweet old lady who loves so much to help other people. What assholes! But despite their efforts, I think this is a good album. Because Mrs. Miller is a treasure that needs to be watched and enjoyed. I love this album. I know it's supposed to be one of the worst things ever made. Someone said that her freaking voice sounds like roaches scurrying across a trash can. Oh my God. Here, after listening to this almost 20 times in a row, I respect and love this woman's work. And we're about to go in deep dive into the entire album. Get ready, it's about to start. Now, the first song on the album is Downtown, Mrs. Miller's top charting single that got on top 100 hot hits on the Billboard chart.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown.
To this reviewer, Mrs. Miller's voice is the embodiment of a warm, gentle, genuine hug. And when I think about her singing, I just know she loves to do it. And you can just feel that in every single second of this song.
Downtown, waiting for you tonight. Downtown, you're gonna be alright now.
The backing track has the equivalent of a high school play, where it's almost like a ragtag group of people trying to get behind their main star because they just love this woman so much. I just don't know. As someone who has grown up around community theater his whole life, I've heard lots of people sound like Mrs. Miller. And when I hear stuff just like Mrs. Miller, it's a warm nostalgia feeling that I just can't hate. It's so unique in its delivery, but I wouldn't ever guess that anyone would say that it was bad, like extremely bad. And lots of people hated this album when it came out. One extremely cool thing off this is Mrs. Miller has her own solo in the on the track, where she is whistling to make it sound like there's birds flying in the air. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Ooh. And I would say that some ways I like it just as much, if not a little bit better than the original, just because of how passionate Miller is on the delivery. I'm starting this whole album off with a 5-star review. I think everyone should listen to it. I really like Downtown.
The shadow of your smile when you are gone will come.
Next up is a very different take of Tony Bennett's original, The Shadow of Your Smile. I think that Mrs. Miller has a wonderful cover and take on the song. While I don't think it's better than the Tony Bennett version, I do think it stands by itself, because it does something a little bit different, as well as a lot of the songs on this album. They are different renditions of the song, and they change some things in it, which I think it makes it a lot more interesting than how William Hong's producers did it on that specific record. It's really cool. It has such an atmosphere to it. It sounds so somber and shady. It sounds like something you would listen to on the radio of a seedy crime drama, like right after someone just got shot to death.
All the lovely things you are to me.
I think this cover is a wonderful compliment to Mrs. Miller's voice. I am a big fan of this song. I am going to be giving Shadow of Your Smile a 4.5. When I freaking heard this song on the record, I laughed my freaking ass off because I was not expecting this song to be on this record. It's the Beatles. It's a hard day's night.
It's been a hard day's night. Now I know like a dog.
Sad thing about this song in particular, you can tell this one is not Mrs. Miller's strong suit. It's just so different from what Mrs. Miller is used to singing, so it's not as good as the first two. But I think just the novelty of Mrs. Miller singing Beatles is extremely funny, because that's just so opposite of what she has to do. I'm really torn on my opinions of this song, because I like it because of how different it is. It's so comically awkward. And on the other hand, I don't like this song because Capitol Records are a piece of shit, and they wanted me to feel that way because they were making this woman sing something she's not used to singing. If I was showing someone Mrs. Miller for the first time, and I only had to pick like 3 or 4 songs that I can show them, I would show them this song just because it's such a well-known song, and it really gives you a sense of what she's about. And so I'm going to say I'm going to give the song 3 stars. Right down the middle, just exactly how I'm feeling about the song even being on here in the first place. Next up is a cover of Andy Williams' Dear Heart.
Dear heart, wish you were here.
This one is very slow, it's very paced. It's not as exciting as the last 3, I will admit, but it's something that's very laid back and very casual, very loungy. Has a little male chorus behind her on this one.
A single room, a table for one.
It's very sweet and somber, just like the original Andy Williams venture. Music's a lot stripped back than the Andy Williams version. But I do think it's pretty okay. I think Dear Heart is a pretty good song. I'm gonna give it a 3, not because she's singing any worse on it. It's just not as exciting as the last songs. And there's a lot more songs on this record that I would listen to before this one. I think this would be near the end of what I would listen to if I was choosing. But it was very good, so I'm just gonna give that a 3. Next up is a Disney copyright strike. It is Chim Chim Cheree by Mary Poppins, covered by Mrs. Miller.
Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim cheree. Oh, sweet is as lucky can be.
It's so funny. This cover is so totally different from the original. Like, the original Chim Chim Cheree is like so happy and go lucky and cheerful. This one seems very bleak and depressing.
Where the smoke is all billowed and curled, between pavement and stars is the chimney sweep world.
This song sounds like it's in the perspective of children slaves in London being forced to be chimney sweeps. Song's good. I think I'm getting lightheaded from all this nail polish I've been putting on this whole time. Sorry to put attention on the running joke, but oh my god, I am so lightheaded. The only negative thing I have is the ending of Chim Chim Cheree, that last little bit from Mrs. Miller. I'm giving Chim Chim Cheree 3.5 stars. Another banger. Next up is another freaking banger. And like, you thought Mrs. Miller had no more hits? Well, guess what? She's coming up with another one. This is a cover of Miss Sinatra's These Boots Were Made for Walking. Yeah. Twice on this show now, I've had 2 different bands cover this song. It was The Residents, and now it's Mrs. Miller. And I think Mrs. Miller is the dominant one of the 2.
You keep saying you got something for me, something you call love, but confess.
I love Mrs. Miller's energy on this song. I love it so much. There are parts in the song where she gets an attitude.
All right, Boots, start walking.
Oh my god, Mrs. Miller is just so fantastic on this song.
You keep saying
Be changing. Something's right, but you ain't been right yet. I mean, obviously, the instrumental is cheap. It's not as good as the original. Mrs. Miller makes up for it. She's pulling the freaking weight on this whole album from track 1 to all the way up to the end, baby. Mrs. Miller, I love this freaking track. If the instrumental was a little bit better, I would give it a 5, but I'm going to give it a 4.5. It's still really good. I recommend anyone to freaking listen to this version. I love it so much. I am so lightheaded. The fumes of this freaking nail polish room. Okay, next one is A Lover's Concerto by The Toys. Yes, The Toys. Now, I've listened to all the originals for every song here. I was not familiar with A Lover's Concerto, and I will say I think the Mrs. Miller version is better.
how gentle is the rain that falls softly on the meadow.
A Lover's Concerto, the original one, is not bad. It's just like kind of it wasn't my jam personally. I've listened to a lot of things from the 60s, but like, I don't know, it was okay. Mrs. Miller is very interesting, and her cover has a very very interesting choice in it.
Oh, see, there beyond the hill, the bright colors of the rainbow.
And And I like the instrumental on this version a little bit better. I like the composition a little bit better. I'm giving this song a 3 because I think I would give the original one a 3 as well. No shame to those who like that song though. I can see why other people would like it. Moving on. Next up is Let's Hang On.
There ain't no use saying our goodbye.
A cover from the Four Seasons, and I think it is a big highlight off of this album. You know what's really funny? I just re-listened to this album again for this. I just listened to this single again, and when I wrote the script, I actually gave it a 2.5. And now I'm just like, why was I so harsh with this song? This song is pretty good. Yeah, I need to air out this room real quick, so I'm just going to just put the camera right here for a bit. Okay, so I like Let's Hang On as well. I think it is a very, very good song. I think what the thing is, it's when you're I was going to give this one a 2.5 stars. I don't know why. I'm giving this one a 4. I think it's very good. Who would have thought, like, just putting all this, I was going to dump a whole thing of nail polish on my freaking hand. I was going to do that as a joke, and I wasn't going to talk about the freaking nails once in this review. And look at me, I'm now doing my show here. I ruined my set over there. It's toxic. By the way, my nails are sponsored by this comment right here. Saying, talking about my nails, and I was just gonna like, oh yeah, I'm gonna piss that guy off, and that backfired. Next one is a cover of Perry Como's "Catch a Falling Star," which I think Mrs. Miller's version is leagues better than the original.
Catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never let it fade away.
His freaking take on his original is so boring, and it's so like minimal, and he's just repeating like the same verse over and over again. The fact that he won a freaking Grammy over Frank Sinatra with this song is nothing short of a miracle. Perry Como must have freaking sold his soul to the devil or something to get that to happen, because I have no idea how this beat out Frank Sinatra.
When your troubles start to multiply, and they just might.
But Mrs. Miller, however, does a fantastic job on this song for what she is covering. Oh man, can you imagine if Mrs. Miller covered Frank Sinatra? Whew, I would love to listen to that. And I love how much jazzier. This song is so much jazzier than the original. It has energy, it has life to it. Like, I would love if Mrs. Miller was still alive today, rest in peace. If she was, I would love if she if I could have saw her on stage singing this version, because I think it's very good. Because it's so much fun. It's so fun. Yeah. So yes, 4.5 stars. Very good, Mrs. Miller. Very good. Oh my God. You know what? I'm glad we're here right now, because I'm pulling out the fanfare. You know what? It's extremely funny that we are covering yet another cover album. Because in both albums, they give the coverer an original song. And this song is called Gonna Be Like That, which is an original. I was not expecting that.
All the gang gonna dance, 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 dance to the sound of the go-go.
I think it's a fantastic original song. I could not believe it wasn't a cover, because I really like the structure of the song, but it does sound a little bit like Otis Redding.
I'm wearing my favorite hat. I said
think Mrs. Miller does a good freaking job. I always sing along to this one, and I kind of like that you can say, oh, this is 100,000% Mrs. Miller, and I like that as well. I give gotta be like that, gonna be like that, gonna be like that, 4 stars. Everyone, like, dudes, guys, that one took a lot out of me. Like, when this thing is over, I am not coming back in that office for a while. Alright, everyone, we are almost finished with our Mrs. Miller Masquerade Party. The last song is another cover by Petula Clark. So we start the album with Petula, we end the album with Petula. What a fascinating concept, Capitol Records. My Love is my least favorite song off the album, but when I say that, it's not bad. Not bad at all.
My love is warmer than the sunshine softer inside. My love is deep.
It is a little disappointing to end the album here after all the highs and lows. It seems like it kind of fizzles out at the very end of the album, but it's not bad either.
Sunshine softer than inside. My love is deeper than the deepest ocean, wider than the stars.
But I also wish it ended on something that had a little bit more Mrs. Miller in it. It's just kind of soft, it's kind of sweet, which I translate it as not as fun. I'm going to give My Love 2.5 stars. Not because it was anything terrible, it was just not nearly as interesting as anything else on the album. So that was Mrs. Miller's greatest hits, everybody. I think Mrs. Miller is a fantastic artist, and I am so glad I have spent so long listening to this album on repeat, on repeat, and on repeat. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I recommend anyone to go and hunt this album down. It's not that expensive, and I think it really showcases that real artists and real musicians can come from anywhere. And back then, it was really hard to see someone who was just out there doing it for fun. Mrs. Miller went on to make several different albums. None of them ever reached the same potential as Mrs. Miller's greatest hits. Not even charted the tops or sold nearly as much. Sadly though, Mrs. Miller did not get a lot of money from this deal. Capitol Records made so much more than her. And out of her entire career with Capitol, she says she only made about $100,000, which is so much little than the returns Capitol got off of her deal. Recommend this artist through and through. It does not belong on the Board of Shame, obviously. So if you ever have some time, check her out. I recommend. Thank you so much for watching. I know this one has been a very unorthodox episode because I did not expect my gimmick to backfire so hard.